What is your take on advances? Do you think that advances are worth the trade-off for what you give up in advance? Is it situational? Like, what's your take?
The first thing to understand about advances, and this isn't saying that they're good or bad, but is that they're always a loan, right? Meaning that it's always money that you're going to be paid by either a record label or a publishing company that...
Some people hate when I say this, by the way. When I compare it to a high interest loan, especially I feel like lawyers really dispute this.
Well, there are differences between a literal traditional loan.
Correct.
But, and you know, with an advance, for example, if you're unrecouped, most of the time, unless you have a very, very predatory deal, which would be rare, but most of the time you don't have to pay it back.
Correct.
However, if you never recoup that advance, you're probably going to be stuck in that deal for a long time, right? And you're never going to really get your royalties because you're still unrecouped.
Right.
And that's the thing to understand is like people are paying advances, and at the very least, they're getting a higher royalty rate, they being the company who's paying the advance.
Yeah.
And the advance is going to keep you
Locked in
that deal, locked in for a period of time, at least until you recoup the advance. But most of the time, or a lot of the time when you're getting paid advances, they often come with, and this is where you really need to pay attention to the contract you're signing, they also come with transferring ownership either of your master or your publishing to that company you're signing to. And that's where, when we talked about, you know, is it good that people can sell, that artists can sell their catalog? Is it good that private equity companies are buying catalogs? That's my position here, which is like, what's important is for artists and producers and songwriters to at least have the option to maintain that ownership. So that when it's time to sell, they're the ones who are selling. And that first advance, if it also comes with you transferring ownership of your catalog, then that basically is, you basically did just sell.
Yeah.
For that first advance. So
unless it reverts back to you.
Right?
After a certain period of time.
What I would say is that not taking advances, you know, the nice thing there is that you're always going to make in the long run, if you recoup that advance, more bread, right? Because you're not going to have that higher rate, you're not going to get locked in, and you're going to have flexibility to do what you want down the line without having to answer to that first deal you signed. So, you know, for KOSIGN, our philosophy is this. KOSIGN isn't an advance platform. We don't pay advances. But what we do is that we make sure that we can collect your publishing royalty as comprehensively and as effectively, efficiently, and quickly as we can so that you can start getting the ball rolling on just collecting your global publishing income, which we believe is actually a very sort of meaningful part of the royalty puzzle. Mm-hmm. And that way, you have options. So if you want to sign up to KOSIGN, start delivering your songs to KOSIGN, and every time you put out a new song, you deliver it to KOSIGN, and you start building up this royalty picture, right? You have full transparency. You can see your money coming in from real time. You can see your registration picture as each of your registrations come online for every song. And it means you have options. Like some people are going to stay on KOSIGN for years and years and years because for them, they just want ownership, they want flexibility, and they want to get paid every quarter. They just want to get paid their publishing royalties. They don't need an advance. Some people might decide a year or two in, you know what, I want an advance, but you're going to get a higher advance because you've already established a track record, and you're going to have the ability to sign that advance deal anytime because KOSIGN, unlike many other platforms, has a flexible rolling deal, right? Like we're not trying to do a gotcha where, oh, minimum year long term, or you know what, you signed up and it's a 3-year deal. Again, there's nothing wrong with a 3-year publishing deal, but our idea with KOSIGN is to just make things as flexible as we can so that people can start collecting their publishing money while keeping their options open.
I have another perspective on advances and why I don't think it's a good idea, aside from the fact of what you just said, where you might transfer your ownership. I get it, right? Like they kind of dangle the bait in front of you. They're like, sign this, you know, $1 million contract and we'll give you this money up front, which could, for a lot of artists or songwriters, be a life-changing amount of money, right? But my perspective on this is like, it is so easy for people to run through a large amount of money like that, especially if you've never received that type of check before, right? So if someone like gives you a large sum of money like that, I just feel like it would go so fast versus you being patient, playing the long game, and receiving like incremental sums amount of money over time, smaller amounts of money, but it's just more sustainable that way to me as not just a creator, but I feel like, you know, when you win the lottery,
right? You read stories like 90%
yeah,
of people who win the lottery end up going
end
bankrupt
up
or
going
something
broke.
like that. Right,
and
yeah.
it's because you just run through all that money and there's no long-term plan for it, right? So
I think that can be really true. And I think the good news is like you're always going to make more money when you keep ownership. Like
yeah,
the way musicians really get rich
yeah,
is by owning their copyrights. And that means that you can get paid in the short term and the medium term, all of those royalties as they come in, if you're registering them correctly. That's why cosign is really important. Because remember, with publishing, if you don't register those songs, that money's just going to get swallowed up by the black box. And like it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars on your project that really will just get paid to the major labels. So step one is keep ownership and register your songs. And the best way to do that is by something like KOSIGN, right? Where we register songs for Childish Gambino. We register songs for Paul McCartney. Those guys are not playing, right?
Yeah.
They're not playing with their publishing. They understand the value of publishing. That is a big part of how they build a legacy as musicians. And I think if you're coming up, you need to look at what are the greatest artists in the world doing, the ones who are smart and who really, really understand their value. Step one, like that's why we built KOSIGN, right? Like that's why we said we're going to take this platform that is being used to collect publishing royalties for the most iconic songwriters in the world. We're going to make it really, really flexible for the next generation, right? Step one is like sign up, deliver those songs, and then collect those royalties. And that way down the line, if you choose to take an advance, you're doing so from a position of knowledge and of empowerment, right? Because, and you might disagree. You might say advances, you should really never take them. And I respect that position too. But I think the first thing you should do is start turning on the tap to get paid. And that is what's going to create more value for you in the long run.